In the grand and glittering kingdom of Persia, there lived a young and beautiful Jewish girl named Esther. This was during the reign of King Xerxes, who ruled over 127 provinces, from India to Ethiopia. Esther's story is one of bravery, beauty, and divine providence that changed the fate of her people. Esther was an orphan. When she was very young, her parents passed away, leaving her in the care of her older cousin, Mordecai. Mordecai was a wise and kind man who loved Esther dearly and raised her as his own daughter in the bustling city of Susa, the capital of Persia. They were part of a Jewish community living in exile, far from their homeland of Israel. One day, a dramatic event shook the palace. King Xerxes threw a lavish feast that lasted 180 days, showcasing the immense wealth and splendor of his kingdom. At the climax of the festivities, he decided to parade his queen Vashti before his guests to show off her beauty. However, Queen Vashti refused to come, which enraged the king. In a fit of fury, Xerxes deposed Vashti, leaving the throne without a queen. In the wake of this scandal, the king's advisors proposed a plan to find a new queen. They suggested gathering all the beautiful young virgins in the kingdom so that the king could choose the fairest among them to be his new queen. The king agreed, and thus a royal decree was sent out across the land. When the decree reached Susa, Esther, who was renowned for her beauty, was taken to the king's palace along with many other young women. Mordecai advised her not to reveal that she was Jewish, as he feared for her safety. In the palace, Esther quickly won favor with Haggai, the keeper of the women. He provided her with the best beauty treatments and special food. Esther's natural grace and kindness made her stand out, and she soon caught the eye of King Xerxes himself. When the time came for the king to choose his queen, he was enchanted by Esther above all others. He placed the royal crown upon her head, making her the new queen of Persia. Esther's rise to royalty was nothing short of miraculous, but her story was just beginning. Meanwhile, Mordecai kept a close watch over Esther from the palace gates. One day, he overheard two palace guards, Bigthana and Teresh, plotting to assassinate King Xerxes. Mordecai immediately informed Esther, who passed the warning on to the king, crediting Mordecai for the information. The plotters were arrested and executed, and Mordecai's deed was recorded in the royal chronicles. As time passed, a new villain emerged in the kingdom. Haman, an ambitious and vengeful advisor who had been promoted to the highest position of power under the king. Haman demanded that everyone bow down to him, but Mordecai refused, declaring that he would bow only to God. This act of defiance infuriated Haman, and he sought to destroy not just Mordecai, but all the Jews in the kingdom. Haman deceitfully persuaded King Xerxes to issue a decree to annihilate all Jews, claiming they were a threat to the empire. The date for this horrific act was set by casting lots, or pur, and letters were sent out to all provinces with the deadly order. The Jewish community fell into despair, fasting, weeping, and wearing sackcloth and ashes. When Mordecai learned of the decree, he sent a message to Esther, urging her to plead with the king on behalf of her people. Esther was terrified. Approaching the king without being summoned could result in death, even for the queen. Mordecai's response to her hesitation was profound. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Moved by his words, Esther decided to act, even at the risk of her life. She asked Mordecai to gather all the Jews in Susa to fast and pray for 3 days, and she and her attendants would do the same. After this, she would go to the king, despite the law. On the third day, Esther donned her royal robes and approached the king's throne. When Xerxes saw her, he was pleased and extended his golden scepter, sparing her life. Esther invited the king and Haman to a banquet she had prepared. Curious and intrigued, the king accepted. At the banquet, the king asked Esther what her request was, promising to grant it, even up to half his kingdom. Esther, displaying wisdom and patience, simply invited the king and Haman to another banquet the next day, where she promised to reveal her petition.
That night, the king couldn't sleep. He ordered the royal chronicles to be read to him and was reminded of Mordecai's earlier act of saving his life. Realizing that Mordecai had not been rewarded, Xerxes asked Haman how a man whom the king wished to honor should be treated. Believing the king intended to honor him, Haman suggested a lavish display of royal robes, a parade through the city on the king's horse, and public acclaim. To Haman's horror, the king ordered him to do all this for Mordecai. Haman had no choice but to comply, leading his enemy through the streets in a humiliating turn of events. This public honor for Mordecai deepened Haman's rage and determination. At the second banquet, King Xerxes once again asked Esther for her request. This time, Esther revealed her Jewish identity and exposed Haman's plot to destroy her people. The king, enraged by Haman's treachery and the threat to his queen, stormed out into the palace garden. When he returned, he found Haman begging Esther for his life, which only sealed Haman's fate. The king ordered Haman to be hanged on the very gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. With Haman gone, Esther still faced the challenge of reversing the deadly decree. According to Persian law, once a royal decree was issued, it could not be revoked. Esther once again approached the king, who allowed her and Mordecai to write a new decree. This new decree gave the Jews the right to defend themselves against any who would attack them. On the appointed day, the Jews were victorious and their enemies were defeated. The Jewish community celebrated their deliverance with joy and feasting. This celebration became known as the Festival of Purim, named after the lots, Purim, Haman had cast. Esther and Mordecai's bravery and faith saved their people from annihilation, and their story has been remembered and honored throughout generations. Esther's life was a testament to courage and faith in the face of great danger. From a humble orphan to a revered queen, Esther's journey shows that sometimes the most unlikely people can become heroes. Her story sparkles with intrigue and triumph, reminding us all that we might be called upon to make a difference, even in the most unexpected ways.